Բարի օր, ես Աստղիկ Սարգսյանն եմ։ Մեր ձեռքը պահում ենք կարևոր եւ հետաքրքիր իրադարձությունների զարկերակին։ Ինչպես հայտնի է, վերջերս վարչապետ Նիկոլ Փաշինյանը այցելեց Նիդերլանդներ, նրան ընդունեց Նիդերլանդների վարչապետը, փոխանակվեցին քաղաքավարություններով եւ խոսել են կարևոր իրադարձությունների, դինամիկ եւ ստատիկ իրադարձությունների վերաբերյալ։ Այսօր մենք գտնվում ենք Նիդերլանդների դեսպանի կեցավայրում եւ փորձելու ենք պարզել, թե ինչպես է արևմուտքը եւ մասնավորապես Նիդերլանդները վերաբերվում Արցախի հարցին, 44-օրյա պատերազմին եւ դրա հետևանքներին եւ ավելին։ Mr. Schermers, thank you for accepting the invitation.
You're welcome, and welcome in the Dutch residence in Yerevan.
Mr. Schermers, you've had to start the embassy from scratch, and I remember that when we paid you a visit the last time, the residence was not ready yet. Do you feel today that the embassy has started to function fully, both residence-wise and institution-wise?
Well, I think that the embassy has been functioning already since January last year, institution-wise. That is when we started with all our staff, the locally recruited staff, as well as our project portfolio. So institution-wise, we are up and running for a long time. In terms of infrastructure, the residence is now fully operational since a couple of months. The Chancery is still a project we are working on, and we hope that by the end of the year that is also ready.
Has Armenia started to feel like home yet, Mr. Ambassador?
Very much. For me, certainly, Armenia is a very pleasant country to live as a diplomat, as an expatriate. Unfortunately, my family could not join me, but they also like to join me every holiday. And yeah, in that regard, there is much to explore. There's much to do in Armenia, and it's a very pleasant country to live.
Mr. Ambassador, we already mentioned that Prime Minister Pashinyan visited the Netherlands a few days ago, quite recently actually. He was received by the Dutch Prime Minister. They exchanged pleasantries, and this was the first official visit to be paid to the Netherlands by the Armenian leader ever, basically. Would you say that this marks a new level of cooperation between the two states?
Well, I think our ties are already very ancient even. I think I last time mentioned the bishop Sint-Servaas who came to the Netherlands in 347
yes, you did.
From Armenia. Yeah, after independence of Armenia in 1991, the Netherlands recognized Armenia on the 30th of January 1992. And since then we have established diplomatic relations. In those 30 years, much has happened. Our relationship has grown, but I think that with the arrival of the embassy and after that the various visits, including the visit of the Prime Minister to the Netherlands, we are really reaching to higher levels. And I hope and I think that this will be the start of many more visits if I listen carefully to what the two leaders exchanged. What I also would like to mention of the visit of Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan to the Netherlands is that it was quite a successful visit from many aspects. And the Prime Minister opened, for instance, or started with the opening of an exhibition of Armenian culture in the Netherlands, which consists also of a part of the Ark of Noah, which is unique for the Netherlands. And this exhibition was already or did receive many positive critics, and I hope to visit that myself in summer. But also the Prime Minister had discussions with the Dutch business community, and I understand that together with his ministers, because there were 4 ministers joining him, many discussions were held on how we can cooperate in the economic field. And finally, the Prime Minister visited our parliament, he discussed with our parliamentarians from both the Senate and the lower house various issues on our bilateral relations. So I think in that perspective things went very well. And then the dinner with our Prime Minister and the various ministers and other staff on the Dutch side was very positive in the sense that we agreed to support Armenia in the field of water management. The Netherlands being very experienced in how to manage water. 20% of our country is below sea level. The Prime Minister Pashinyan asked for support in that regard and was awarded that by our Prime Minister. An expert will at some point come to Armenia to advise in this regard.
Let us come back to Armenia for a moment. We are living in the midst of political turmoil, Mr. Ambassador, and since you're located in Armenia, you have the opportunity to, I don't know, the opportunity or what else to call it, but you are able to watch what's going on and witness it firsthand. You've seen the political protests and you've seen how the police reacted to it. Would you say that the whole process remains democratic by and large?
As far as I can see, it is still a democratic process. I think that demonstrations are part of democracy. We have seen that also in the Netherlands quite recently, as long as no violence is used. And that is always the difficult issue. And when violence is used, then of course police may need to act. And in that regard, then it's very important that there is a legal system to follow up, to hold the perpetrators as well as the police accountable for what they do or did. This occurs also in other countries, in the Netherlands, and I've seen it also in other countries I was posted. So yeah. In this regard, demonstrations are part of democracy.
The political turmoil erupted after Prime Minister Pashinyan declared that the international community expects Armenia to lower the bar of the status of Nagorno-Karabakh. Does this mean that the West and the Netherlands specifically oppose the independence of Artsakh?
My Prime Minister commended Prime Minister Pashinyan during his visit in the Netherlands, especially for his bravery in this regard, because I think the most difficult part of Nagorno-Karabakh is the fact that the international community, in any case my country, has always seen that this was not a 44-day war but a 30-odd-year war. The conflict is going on much longer, and that needs to be sorted out by a peace agreement. And I think that Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan was very brave, and that was in any case also commended by my Prime Minister by stating this and by having his speech in Parliament.
Mr. Ambassador, the opposition in Armenia says we have never heard anyone from the international community actually say that they expect us to lower the bar of the Nagorno-Karabakh status. How would you comment?
Well, I think the most important thing about the situation around Nagorno-Karabakh is that a peace treaty is reached between Armenia and Azerbaijan, an all-encompassing peace treaty that settles the status of Nagorno-Karabakh in that regard. And if that means, it's very likely that both parties somehow will have to lower the bar in that regard to find a compromise that is acceptable to all parties.
Mr. Ambassador, autocratic Azerbaijan launched war on democratic Armenia last year. We witnessed that the West, during the 44-day war, basically split the responsibility between the aggressor state and the attacked state. To put it bluntly, the Armenian society has this feeling that we've not been supported, although we belonged, we hope, to the democratic family of European democracies. How would you comment?
Again, I think my Prime Minister made it very clear that we support the democracy in Armenia. Our Prime Minister was very much impressed by what Prime Minister Pashinyan told him about his own experiences in getting into office as Prime Minister. We saw the democratic developments in Armenia, and we still see what is going on, the struggle Armenia is in, and that very much deserves the support of the West, of the Netherlands. As far as the war is concerned, again, what I mentioned before. For us, the problem is a little bit that we were basically confronted with the inheritance of the former Soviet Union. International law, as being invented in the Netherlands, was by Hugo de Groot, very much attaches great value to the territorial integrity of states. And that is what we see now also in Ukraine, and that is the reason why my country is supporting Ukraine in this in its fight against Russia.
However, does the perception of international law prevent the West from holding Azerbaijan responsible for violating the principle of not using force?
In that regard, during the visit to the Netherlands, my Prime Minister also mentioned that we are very much upholding the humanitarian humanitarian law in war situations. And prisoners of war are therefore also to be released. My Prime Minister made that clear again to your Prime Minister that he will fully support Armenia in that regard. As far as the principle of violence, we don't support violence. We hope that Armenia and Azerbaijan will find a solution over Nagorno-Karabakh that is acceptable to both parties, and that should be done in a peaceful way.
Mr. Ambassador, we are witnessing how after the 44-day war in Nagorno-Karabakh, Azerbaijan is implementing the policy of no Armenians in Artsakh, creating a humanitarian crisis there. On the other hand, claiming that the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict has been resolved. What is the stance of the Netherlands on this issue? Do you consider that the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is resolved, or do you condemn the policy that Azerbaijan is implementing in Artsakh right now?
We are certainly of the opinion that the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is not resolved, and that is why we very much hope that the OSCE Minsk Group co-chairs can at some point find a solution with both parties to resolve the issue. We're also very glad that the EU is taking a bigger role in this to bring parties together. And that is all part of the peace process. The two parties need to negotiate and discuss what situation can exist after this peace agreement has been reached for the group living in Nagorno-Karabakh.
Mr. Ambassador, on the one hand, Armenia has strong ties, strategic ties with Russia. On the other hand, we share the value system that Europe has. How does the West, Europe and the Netherlands specifically, do you perceive in a sense, to be a situation that Armenia is in understandingly?
Certainly, and I think that that was also a strong message of your Prime Minister to my Prime Minister during the visit. Armenia is indeed in this very difficult situation, and therefore needs to take certain positions in multilateral fora that we would like to see differently, but that we fully understand that Armenia has to make choices like that. And I also reported that back to my capital. This is on the government level, but even on individual levels where I hear stories of people having family members in both countries, and that makes it very difficult to take a position sometimes. And we know about the pressure that is being exerted on Armenia in this regard, so we certainly try to take that into consideration.
What projects is the embassy implementing right now, and what are your plans for the future?
Well, thanks to my staff, we are implementing quite a number of projects in different areas. And quite recently I signed a number of contracts that are to support free media in Armenia. So we hope that these NGOs are going to support the public to become resilient against fake information, fake news. But we also hope that these projects will support other agencies to pop up, to be able to train their journalists, etc. Next to that, we also financed recently a number of projects which are focused on gender equality, because that is also one of the priorities of the Netherlands, next to media. We think that there is still a lot to be gained in Armenia, and we see a lot of women active here who could use some support to turn their ideas into reality. And on top of that, we have a number of projects more in the economic domain. We try to support agriculture, IT, and that is where the Prime Minister's visit was quite helpful again to establish contacts in this area. I also would like to mention that the Netherlands is always a strong supporter of LGBTI community. So we do that also in Armenia because we believe in equal rights for everyone and also for those people. And finally, on the cultural side, it's always a bit difficult because funds are always limited in that regard. But I'm very glad that also in that area we find ways to have cross-border initiatives between Armenia and the Netherlands. And we mentioned the exhibition in the Netherlands, but also we had the World Press Photo here recently in Armenia, and other exhibitions are also about to appear in this summer.
Mr. Skhերmers, thank you for making this interview possible.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Մենք այսօր հյուրընկալվել էինք Հայաստանում Նիդերլանդների դեսպան Նիկոլաս Սխերմերսի կեցավայրում։ Կհանդիպենք։